Welcome to Don't Fear the Weight podcast with your host Vicky Masita, bringing together science and personal experience.
Hi guys, welcome back to the next episode of Don't Fear the Weight. With me, your tiny titan host, wearing the exclusivity t-shirt today, or vest, shall I say? I don't know. It's hot, so I just kind of put on what I wanted to. It's me, Vicky Masita, and today on the hot seat is a brand new guest by the name of Mr. Steve Kemp. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Thank you very much.
Good.
Now, for people who don't know you, Steve, obviously we've had a few conversations back and forth quite recently as well. And that's the reason why I wanted to bring you onto this podcast, because we share a similar mindset when it comes to nutrition. But for people who don't actually know who you are, will you just give us a little bit of a rundown of your background and why I wanted to have a conversation with you here today?
Yeah, cool. So, as you've already said, my name's Steve Kemp from stephenmkemp.com. I am a nutritionist who works with people who kind of want to get stronger, look sexy, you know, feel better about themselves, that kind of thing. And I'm currently working with clients, and some of those clients have kind of IBS or gastrointestinal sort of issues, that kind of thing. And so I kind of have to help them out sometimes. I have to do what I can nutritionally to help them, and then look at other lifestyle factors, that kind of thing. Just work. It's just a part of like working with clients every day. So that's why you brought me on, to talk about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the big things that everybody knows as well about myself is that I have a lot of digestive disorders. Personally, that I am under a lot of investigatory tests at the moment, and people are very nicely asking me all about them. And I know that yourself, you have a history of digestive issues yourself, but you have a much more pinpointed one, don't you? Yeah,
that's right. So what I have is Crohn's disease, which is an inflammatory bowel disease. So like inflammatory bowel diseases are a little bit different from what we would think of like being irritable bowel syndrome. So IBS is like, it's like a group of symptoms. It's not like a disease. Whereas an IBD is like what I have. Crohn's disease is an actual like disease that you can, as you say, pinpoint a little bit more. You know. So, but it's okay. It's like it gets in the way sometimes, but it's all right. So I think a lot of people, because I've written about it before in the past, and because I mention it sometimes just as something that I kind of live with. And it's one of the reasons that I switched from, like a pretty okay career in music to kind of doing this for a living, is because of like trying to fix it through diet and stuff like that. It led to reading a lot of research about it and stuff. So it's something that obviously drove me back in the day. So maybe a few people know that about me. So I tend to talk about it a little bit in podcast stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, excuse me. Digestive and gut health is really, really fundamental and important. That's the reason why we're kind of really highlight some of the things that you can do with nutrition to make sure that you have optimal gut health, I suppose, sure. Regardless of whether you've got these kind of debilitating diseases or not. So like you said, sometimes your Crohn's disease gets in the way, but you can manage your symptoms quite well and still live with it fairly all right, can't you?
Yeah, so that depends. Like, so the thing is about Crohn's disease is that it, like, for some people, it kind of goes on holiday, right? For like long periods of time, which is great. So when it's on holiday, I'm perfectly happy. But then it can be a surprising little sort, so it can come back when you don't want it to. You can manage it like through diet. You can use diet to like really, really help you. But one of the most annoying things about it is that like when it wants to like be angry with you, it just can be. Then it's the difference between being able to manage it through nutrition and being able to like use nutrition as just like a backup tool, right? Because a lot of people have to either have surgery or they have to have some kind of drugs or something like that, which is going to then be the primary thing that you need to like be able to fix it with. But nutrition is like, rather than being your primary thing to keep it away, if you like, it's just a way to back yourself up. If you've got a terrible diet and Crohn's disease, that's not generally a good idea, right? But it is tough. Like, symptom wise, a really great way to make it go away is to just not eat anything at all, right? Which is
yeah,
which is not particularly helpful, but So a lot of people with Crohn's disease do suffer from malnutrition, stuff like that, because they're not thinking about their diet. They're just thinking about not feeling terrible. So it's important to address that and to manage it. And it's the same thing with IBS and stuff too. It can go down a path of just having a terrible diet, or just making wrong dietary choices that you think is going to fix IBS. Whereas we'll probably get into this a little bit later. It's not about fixing IBS. It's about fixing your particular symptoms, right? So like thinking about the symptoms rather than thinking about what the syndrome is.
Absolutely. And I really like that, because what you've highlighted there is about fixing your particular symptoms, because everybody reacts to certain things or different things. It's no kind of like one size fits all at the end of the day, isn't it? So what I do with some of my clients is actually get them to keep a symptom diary and say like, right, well, if this kind of symptom occurs, what was it that you ate 2 hours before, or something along those lines? And we can really break it down. And it's interesting what people do react to. And, you know, what could have a really, really high inflammatory marker based on the science and the literature may affect like 3 people, but may not affect 10 people. It's really interesting. I find it very good.
Yeah, so with my clients, I do the same thing with the symptom diaries and stuff, because often people just don't know like why it's happening. And so it just gives you a little bit of detective work, you know, so you can have a little look. So that's a cool idea.
For sure, for sure. So let's get into one of the biggest things that I see that's quite prevalent at the moment is bloat. Okay, people bloat, and people bloat in different areas, and people are going to laugh at me when I say this, but sometimes people can bloat from right at the top of their stomach, and then other people can bloat right from the bottom, and then other people can just have this big protruding pregnant belly. So let's talk about bloat and why it is really not normal for people to kind of go, oh yes, look, I've got the food baby. You know, why is bloat not normal? Yeah,
so bloat is just, it can be a symptom of various things, right? But it's one of the symptoms of IBS, right? So like I said about IBS, it's not like a specific disease. It's not like this happens, and this happens. It's just like a series of different symptoms, right? So bloating can affect people. But like you say, it's not normal, and people get used to it. So it can be caused by various different things, right? Like one, you just might be constipated. If someone like really constipated, right, that can become normal for people. Like, I hate to ask these questions, but like, you know, you have to ask like, how often do you go to the loo, stuff like that. And sometimes people are like, oh, you know, once a week, and they're not like shocked by that. I'm like, okay, really?
Yeah, that's really not normal.
Yeah, that's probably not great. You know, so it can be that, like, and constipation is like one of the ways that IBS kind of like shows itself, right? So it can be constipation. Other people can get diarrhea, for instance. They definitely won't have that problem. But you can still be bloated and have diarrhea too. So it's like, it's a little bit of a tricky one. And the other one is like, so there's that, you could just be constipated. And another one could be certain foods that you're eating are causing a buildup of gas, for want of a better way to put it, right? So it's not, a lot of people will think that it's like some great big like type of inflammation or something like that, and that's not what it is. But certain foods cannot be digested easily by the normal GI tract, and they can cause a lot of bloating. So for instance, and I know that we've talked about this before, certain carbohydrates that can't be that aren't easily digested. So for instance, what we call FODMAPs, which are fermentable oligosaccharide, disaccharide, monosaccharides, and polyols, right? Which sounds really boring, but it's just like, they're just like certain veggies, all the things that are good for you, or a lot of the things that are good for you. And what happens is they have certain carbohydrates in them, which your gut can't break down. And so what happens is your bacteria in your intestine tends to like break those things down, tends to metabolize those things and turn them into short chain fatty acids. But it can also be like readily like fermented by your gut bacteria, and that fermentation, as a byproduct of that fermentation, could be certain gases like methane, these kind of gases, which can just bloat you right up, right? Really make you bloated, make you feel super uncomfortable and just terrible. And if that's happening to you, you shouldn't just think, you know, oh, the food baby. You're like unless you've just eaten like an enormous amount of food, and then you literally do have this kind of protruding stomach because you've just stuffed yourself. If you're just eating normal meals and you're like that, that's not a food baby, right? That's like bloat, and you should address that if you can.
Yeah, for definite, for definite. Now, FODMAPs is the one thing that I was really interested in diving into, because it's one of those things that people kind of go, oh yeah, you know, following the FODMAP diet, and they really kind of poo-poo it in a way. Sorry, that was not meant to actually do that. I was not part of the podcast. But they really do, don't they? They really don't take these kind of things seriously. And when I suggest going low FODMAP or having a look at some of the vegetables that they are eating, like a lot of them do have very, very high in raffinose vegetables. So things like the cruciferous kind, so the broccolis, the cauliflowers, that kind of thing. And people are like, oh yeah, but I eat broccoli because it's bro. And that's what bodybuilders do, right? Chicken, rice and broccoli. And then I'm bloated and I don't understand what it is. So let's get into some of the FODMAP, but some of the things that people don't actually realize that are high FODMAPs, like say, for example, honeys are quite a high FODMAP carbohydrate, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's like foods that are going to have excess fructose. So that's not to say that fructose is bad, right? For instance, because it's not, it's just a sugar like anything else. But if it's like, if the fructose in something way outweighs the other stuff, it can be a problem, right? So the problem is with like low FODMAP diets. So let's just talk about what they are, right? So what I mentioned is these kind of vegetables that you talked about now, that I mentioned before, the things that can cause this bloating, those kind of non-digestible kind of carbohydrates, if you like, they're often in the foods that either we like or that we perceive to be really healthy, or just habitually we just eat all the time. So like, for instance, like, I mean, I love like cauliflower. Like I really, really like it, especially like cauliflower cheese and stuff like that. But you can do it in loads of ways. But like, you just can't eat it, right? Like if you suffer from this stuff, it's not going to be something that you should have regularly in your diet. It's not necessarily dangerous, right? I want to just point that out. This bloating and stuff like that, it's really uncomfortable. It's really bad, but it's not necessarily like a threat to you or any kind of danger. It's not making you ill. So you do have the choice. Like, for instance, if I want to go out, I have to follow a reasonably low FODMAP diet most of the times. If I want to go out and eat cauliflower, you know, it doesn't sound that exciting, but if you don't have it, trust me, it is, especially when the cauliflower cheese comes out. I'm like, man. But I can just choose to have it, right? It's just about knowledge. It's just about understanding like what is and what isn't. So yeah, excess fructose, like you say, like things like honey and stuff like that, a lot of dried fruit, a lot of like fruit juices, you know, mangoes, pears, peaches, all those kind of things, even sweeteners to a certain extent, they can all cause these kind of problems. And people just don't, people who try a low FODMAP diet don't understand that like you have to like stop all of that stuff. You really have to be like strict with it for quite a while. Otherwise you won't know what's working or what isn't. You'll never know if the diet works or not until you like leave those things out. So you have to do that for at least a period of weeks. And it's just, I think, like you say, people poo-poo it. I just think they find it really hard, especially if they eat out. It's really, really difficult. And motivation to do stuff like that is just not necessarily high on people's agenda. Even if they feel bad, it's just not something that they're always willing to do.
I think that's the same the world over, though, isn't it? It's like if you are trying to diet for a bodybuilding competition or you're trying to make weight as a power lifter, and then you're like, yeah, but I really feel like I need more food. And it's like, well, yeah, it's hard. Dieting is hard, very hard. But if you want to achieve a particular goal, then you need to kind of crack on and get over it.
That's true. I mean, if you want to achieve the goal of not feeling really terrible and not being bloated, then you need to try stuff. Otherwise, if you're not motivated to do that, then fine. But I do have people who come to me who really are motivated. They really hate it. You know, they feel like it can make you feel fat, right? You know, and it's obviously not fat, it's bloating, but it can make you feel, as well as feeling uncomfortable, as well as feeling just like, it can make people feel, you know, like it's fat, or it can make them certain clothes not fit properly. It can actually like, you know, stand out to a certain point. So I do have clients who do have these issues, who are like really motivated to get rid of them, in which case the diet is like not hard to follow. It's like, you know, it's not the only thing that causes bloating either, right? Bloating can be caused by I mean, for some people, like certain triggers, like alcohol, that's not a FODMAP. Stress can do it for certain people.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
stress and anxiety, things like that. But seeing as we are talking about FODMAPs just now, like if you clear them out of your diet completely and give it a couple of weeks and then it's better, well, there's your answer, right? Then we've found out what's going on, and then you can try to introduce them back. So the thing is, it's not just one type of food, right? So it's like excess fructose, lactose for some people, what's called a fructan, which is often found in bread and like pasta and stuff like that. A lot of people think that the problem is wheat, where it's actually like fructans, and then galactans, which are in like beans and stuff, and then polyols, which are in a load of different fruits. So very often it won't be all of those things that affect people, or they're all just different types of these little carbohydrates that I was talking about. So to do it properly, you need to eliminate first and then add back in, right? So you add them back in like one by one. So if broccoli was like a thing, right, that we wanted to try and eat again, broccoli is something with quite a lot of which one is it? I think it's a fructan that broccoli has. I've forgotten now because I don't memorize these things, but it's high in one of them, right? So you can add that back in, and if it causes you a problem, then again, there's your answer. And then you can add back in like honey, like what we're talking about, or some of the excess fructose type things. And if that doesn't affect you, then at least you've learned about yourself, right? But it's this trial and error. It's the fact that it takes ages to do that people aren't necessarily like willing to go down. But I think it just needs structure, and then it can work.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely 100% agree. And it's like people get so pissed off because of the simple fact that it does take a really long time to kind of figure out what affects you and what doesn't. And they don't want that. It's like people wanting to lose weight for their holiday. They want a quick fix. They want to lose weight now. They want the magic pill. You know, and that's what they're going to do. They don't want the long haul. They don't want the sustainable diet. They don't want to learn and educate themselves. They just want to be given the anecdote, and that's what's going to work for them. And it is extremely frustrating. I mean, I suffered from a really long time to do with my my bloating and my digestive issues, and it was extremely depressing in a way.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. It is depressing. It like you feel like it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
You feel like you don't know how to fix it. And it is. It can make you feel really bad about yourself, and you shouldn't.
Absolutely. You know? And especially if you are a massive foodie like I am. I love food. I love all kinds of different food. Food is my downfall, but it's not my downfall because, you know, I can control it very, very well.
Yeah.
But if you are a massive foodie and you are all of a sudden told you've got to be restricted, that is just like, oh my God, that's like red to a bull, right? Because all of a sudden it's like, well, now I want to eat all of the foods. Even if they're not going to make me feel bad, I want to eat all of the foods.
So another thing that can happen with people often is that, let's say that they're not dieting and they're eating like pretty much whatever they want. They'll have a few favorites. Maybe they like a certain pizza or something like that, right? That's got like artichokes on it or something. Right, and that's just their favorite pizza. It's got artichokes on it, it's got onions, it's got all these kind of things, right? All FODMAPs, all bad for bloating. And you don't eat that all the time, but you eat it enough for it to like make you feel bloated. What will happen is that they'll go on a diet and they'll limit the foods that they eat. They won't necessarily go bro and start eating loads of broccoli and stuff, but maybe they'll just eat less food overall, and because of that they'll eat less FODMAPs. And then this bloating goes down. They lose like 10 centimeters off their waist straight away. And they're like, oh my God, this is fat loss. I'm nailing this diet. And it's not, it's just that they've stopped eating that stuff, right? So you can feel like that all the time. You can feel like slimmer, you know, without actually having to like lose weight and stuff. You can feel just a lot slimmer and a lot better about yourself if you kind of address bloating from that kind of standpoint, if that makes sense.
Definitely, make 110% makes sense. And it also makes you mentally feel clearer as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've had clients that have said this, but I know that when I've had a really bad episode of bloating that's lasted a couple of days or whatever, I literally cannot think straight.
Mm-hmm.
Because it affects everything. It affects your sleep. It affects your body temperature because your body's trying to digest everything that is still stuck in your gut. And then that increases your core temperature. And that, you know, at some point when I was really bloated, it actually affected my ability to breathe deeply.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because you were so bloated. So these are things that realistically, guys, if you are bloating, you really need to take quite considerably. And you need to take it quite seriously, because exposing yourself to long-term bloating and digestive issues like this can build up into quite a chronic problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you can cause more and more problems. It's like people who are celiacs. If they keep on exposing themselves to gluten, it keeps on damaging their the lining of their gut and the lining of their bowels. So it's really not a good thing to keep on exposing yourself to that side of things.
No, I think bloating is going to be more of an effect like where celiac disease is concerned. That's you know, gluten is not something that you should be consuming if you're celiac disease. Whereas bloating, if you don't have any kind of disease or anything, it's not good. But I think that the effect is more just like how uncomfortable you feel and how psychologically that can affect you. Like, you shouldn't necessarily go with it, but it's not necessarily going to cause, unless it's like really, really chronic constipation. People can have normal bowel movements and still be bloated. But unless it's going to cause like really extreme constipation, which can result in like, you know, issues, then the issue is going to be more psychological. It's going to be more just feeling crap rather than it's going to do anything bad to you. But that's still a really great reason to address it, right? It's still not something that you should just ignore for that point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's it. I mean, if you feel crap and mentally you're fogged up, and then if you feel like rubbish and you feel like crap about the way that you look, you're not going to want to go to the gym and do your training.
No, right.
You feel sluggish and everything else, aren't you? So it all correlates into one. Now, one thing I wanted to get into as well was polyols. Protein bars are a go-to for people who are on the go and they want a quick fix of protein and a quick fix of fat and maybe minimal carbs, because it's all down to polyols. So let's talk about that. What can polyols do to your digestive tract, and why aren't you a fan of them?
Yeah, so exactly the same thing. So they can do a couple of different things. So polyols are kind of like, sometimes you'll hear the word polyol, sometimes sugar alcohols. Basically, again, just like these types of sugar, types of carbohydrate that aren't normally broken down by your GI tract and can mess with you if you have too many of them, right? So for some people, like we've just been talking about FODMAPs, we know all about bloating and stuff like that now. So for some people, they'll eat protein bars. They'll think, hey, this is healthy. You know, I'm going to have like 4 of these protein bars today because I don't have time to eat any meals. And all of a sudden, they literally will be like a beached whale, you know, completely bloated, and they'll think, I don't know what's going on. And it's just having too many of these polyols. So I honestly wouldn't have more than like 1 protein bar a day, really, but 2 if you can handle it. But like, you don't want your diet to be protein bars. You don't want to have too many of these things in there. And 2, it can cause diarrhea for some people. Like literally, like, oh, that sounds good. That wasn't me, right? Okay, cool.
He's all right. He's cool.
So, yes, so some people can actually like get diarrhea like from this. So it's just worth thinking about anything that's sweetened but is low carb. Like if you're sensitive to that, then it'll have to have some kind of sweetener in there. And some of these sweeteners are absolutely fine, but some of them, like these sugar alcohols, like mannitol, xylitol, these kind of things that are in protein bars basically can mess you up a little bit. But it depends. Some people can handle it better than others. I am a person who cannot, right? So I can eat a protein bar, but I can't really have 2 of them, you know.
Yeah, that's it. See, I've got a lot of clients who do the same thing, and they're like, oh, I'm bloated every day. I'm bloated at 2 o'clock. Right, well, let's have a look and see what goes on.
What happens at
1? always have a protein bar. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what? Just swap that out. Maybe have something like this instead. And they're like, oh my God, you're a genius. It's like, no, it's because we've just taken out all of that crap that you're having in a badly made kind of protein bar. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some very good protein bars out there. However, the majority of them, when they are these low carb ones, they've got a lot of sorbitol, a lot of xylitol, mannitol, anything that kind of says "ol" at the end are the ones that you've got to kind of look out for.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can get good protein bars as well, which will be lower in those things. You can get ones that are higher in sugar. It really depends on your goals and stuff. But like I said, anything that's low carb but tastes really sweet, that sweetness has to come from somewhere, and that sweetness is often, it depends whether it's the sweetness or whether it's like just some kind of filler or whatever, but like you've got to be careful. If you eat something and you have a reaction to it, it's a good idea to not eat it all the time, right? Makes sense, but people don't do that.
Absolutely. So one other thing that I really want your opinion on, just because it's a big thing at the minute, ice cream, like Halo Top, and this Brewers ice cream or something. You can have a whole tub for like 350 calories or something like that.
Yeah. So same thing, right? Like if you can handle that and you feel okay, then I have no issues with eating that at all. 350. So I don't think about food in terms about like the volume that it makes up in your diet. I think about food in terms of like the amount of calories, if you like, or the number of calories rather that are in your diet. So for instance, I like an 80-20 kind of rule or a 90-10 kind of rule, depending on the kind of person that you are.
Yeah.
So, whereas, most of it, 80%, if you like, is going to come from like whole foods, healthy stuff. And then 20%, 10% can come from like whatever you want. And just because the food that you're eating is not unhealthy per se, in the sense that it's like not, got tons of unhealthy. There are no healthy or unhealthy foods, right? There are only unhealthy or healthy diets, right? So any food can contribute to a healthy diet, right? But you don't want, just because it's low carb and low calories, you don't want your whole day to be basically ice cream, right? Because then you're missing out on all the other beneficial stuff that you can get in your diet. But other than that, I don't have a problem with it, right? So if you can eat a whole tub of it and that makes you feel great, and you can do that without feeling bad, like because of the things that we talked about, because of like, sugar, alcohols and these kind of things, then fill your boots. But like, if you're making it like a mainstay of your diet and you're feeling terrible because you're getting bloated and, and whatever else is happening, maybe even like there might be, I don't know the amount of lactose that are in these things as well, but that can be an issue for people. That's a FODMAP2, excess lactose. It's not because it's bad for you. It's just because some people don't have the enzyme to break it down properly. They don't have the lactase enzyme. So if it affects you, if it makes you bloated, don't eat it, or at least don't eat as much of it as you would like. And just don't make your diet like that. Don't make it like, you do see people who are like flexible dieting, who have a diet of like gummy bears, protein shakes and low calorie ice cream, right? And that's not dieting. That's just being an idiot, right? So that's basically it. Common sense. I don't know. How do you feel about the stuff?
I'm exactly the same, to be perfectly honest. I always say that there are no restrictions for my clients. They're only restricted by the macro numbers that I give them. But other than that, they've got to be an adult about things. So it's like, if you want to have ice cream and you want to be a flexible dieter and you want to have no restrictions, then absolutely fine. But you've got to ensure that you have got a good balance of nutrition. So you've got to have your micronutrients, you've got to have vitamins, you've got to have minerals. You carry on eating what we talk about, like empty calories that aren't going to be good for you. It's going to make you feel like shit. It is going to detriment your performance in the gym. It is going to detriment your recovery. It is going to detriment your overall internal health and psychological health as well. Because realistically, if we have to make weight for something, or we have to bring you down for a bodybuilding competition, and I start taking calories away from you, and you keep on saying to me, Vic, I'm really bloody hungry, but you're spending 290 calories on a protein bar that's going to be bloating you, and you're a small female on 1,300 calories.
So that's just common sense. Very, very, very often, one of the things, going slightly off topic now, but hey, one of the things that happens with some of my clients, when they start with me, if I haven't had a chance to like educate them properly, is that they'll have like I say, we're all creatures of habit, and we'll all have our favorites, right? Things that we like to eat, like generally like every day. And let's say that those things are, people like have higher carb diets, or people just like carbs, right? So maybe they eat bread quite a lot, you know, maybe they eat things like that. Maybe they eat foods that are slightly higher in calories and less in like volume, right? So smaller meals, but still kind of calorific. And then they'll try and eat that way when they get on a diet. So they'll go on a diet. I'll cut their calories down to who knows what. It depends. I can be quite fierce sometimes where that's concerned. And then they'll try and eat the same diet, right? So they'll try and eat like lunch is going to be this bread and this stuff. And if you can do that and handle the hunger, then I don't have a problem with it. But most people can't. Most people, like, your gut's got like literally like sensors that sense the stretch of your gut when you've started eating, like stretch in your stomach, which will make you result in like you feeling fuller, right? It's not the only thing that makes you feel full, because the body senses energy and all this kind of stuff, but it can literally, if you fill yourself up, like even drinking water does it, drinking fizzy water, those kind of things do it. So a lot of people are on a diet. If like one of your meals during the day is a protein bar and you're like starving hungry, like you say, maybe that's not a great idea. If you're spending 300 calories on low cal ice cream every day, but you're only on like 1,200 calories because, like you said, you're a small female or something, then you just have to think, well, what else could I spend that 300 calories on? Like, think of it like financially, like a cost benefit ratio, right? If you've got 300 to spend, how does it benefit you to spend these? And psychologically, like, it can be beneficial to spend those 300 calories on something like ice cream if you want, but you've just got to be able to manage that, right? So either, if you can't do that every day, if it's just resulting in hunger all the time, then make it like 1 day a week, or have a higher calorie day, or have something like that. Try and plan your week so that you can get the stuff in to make yourself happy still while on a diet, or as happy as possible, because there's always going to have to be restrictions. But just don't try and do the same things you do when you're like not thinking about it, or you're in the off season or whatever, because it's just not going to work. You do need to make changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to be aware of those changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of people have you ever had people who have come to you and say, oh yeah, well, I eat really healthy, and you say, well, how many calories are you having every day? And they go, oh, I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the time, right? So again, a healthy diet is like I said, there are no healthy or unhealthy foods per se, right? But there are healthy and unhealthy diets, and some people do eat like pretty much textbook like diet. You're like, wow, okay, great. I mean, if you tell me, like, often when I ask someone to describe their diet to me, like during like the consultation process or whatever, they'll just talk about the foods that they like eating, and they'll come out with like, I like to eat, you know, all of these vegetables, basically everything that I think is like makes up a really decent diet. And I'll be like, awesome. But some people just have huge appetites, you know, and they can eat loads of those foods. Like, it still comes down to energy balance at the end of the day. I know Martin McDonald tells a story about one of his clients who was obese, but ate like, his diet was awesome in terms of food choices, but he just ate like 5,000 calories of them. Like, just had an enormous appetite. So there is that as well. Healthy diet, like, that will still make you fat, right? If you consume too many calories. So yeah, you've still got to look at, I don't know, healthy and unhealthy diets. It's so difficult. There's so many different diets that can be healthy. There are so many different facets to health than just like physiological health as well. So it's, you know, like a diet can be like very healthy or unhealthy. Like financial health is like a real thing. It's something that, you know, if you just live off food that is like super expensive all the time, you can't afford to buy it. Then that's not a diet that's healthy. There's so many things that come into it that we have to think about. But yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I have a healthy diet, therefore it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to call the podcast that I have a healthy diet and therefore it's fine. There are so many different things that need to be taken into consideration. I think that's a really nice note to wrap it up on as well, Steve. Uh-huh. So obviously, I'll be putting all of your links underneath here, but for people who want to come to you for some more maybe nutritional consultations, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I've got my website then. That's probably the best bet. The best way to get, I put my best stuff out like via email. So I do articles every week and I sometimes follow that up with different emails. So if you go to my website, which is stephenmkemp.com, sign up for my email list. I'll send you awesome stuff. And that's just a cool way for me to communicate with you. And if you want to ask me any questions, you just ping me an email. I'll get back to you.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I will tag you on Instagram and various other bits. So guys, go and follow them on Instagram as well. And I know that you've got a Facebook page, so I'll tag the Facebook page as well.
Instagram, all the standard stuff. Yeah.
All the standard stuff. We can easily find you, which is awesome. Well, Steve, thanks ever so much for your time today.
Hey, no problem.
And guys, if you've got any questions for myself or Steve, then please put them in the comments section underneath the YouTube video and we will make sure that we get back to you as soon as possible. So that's it from myself. That's it from Steve. That's it from Don't Fear the Wait for another week. Lots of love and I will catch you all very soon.